Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast. I'm Dan Hilton, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by one of the biggest acquisitions for any team, I'd say, in 2021. It's Elliott Chartock. How's it going today, Elliott?
Hey, it's good. Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Elliott does join us from New York City, where he is now a resident after quite a few years on the West Coast, which we'll talk all about the West Coast. We'll talk about his origins. But first, I want to start with present day and how you wound up on the Empire in 2021.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say unexpected for me, probably had to do a bit with the pandemic. I've been here since 2018, but in my move east had kind of decided to retire the cleats, and, dive into career and kind of the New York life. And over the pandemic, Jack Williams and I were chatting a bit. He was telling me about the team. I started missing Frisbee, missing, being active. And the more he told me, the more I got interested. So, finally he decided to connect me with Matt Stevens and had a first discussion, decided to come out to a practice. And I think I signed like the very next day, had a ton of fun, really liked the guys, really liked the team, and realized I was missing Frisbee a ton. So yeah, started with a phone call with Jack. And then after one practice, I was hooked.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about potentially hanging up the cleats. We heard almost the exact same thing from one of your O-line mates in Ryan Oscar. When he came on the show, he said the same thing, that he was thinking about just sitting out. And then the work that was done for you, it was Jack Williams, and for him, it was Ryan Holmes and Ben Yott and Jeff Babbitt. And so that's what's made up the O-line. So we did already hear from Ryan Oscar on this too. But what is it like joining a team that hasn't lost since the 2018 semifinals?
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I think I don't really think about that too much. Maybe in between weeks you hear about some of these things, and so it comes through your head. But by the time you're on the field or in practice, none of that's going through your head. You're just playing and trying to have clean offense or get the disc back if you turn it. So I don't think about that a ton, but I've definitely noticed playing with really, really skilled cutters on the O-line, and just, top to bottom, the O-line, definitely the strongest line I've ever played with. We're learning to play together, how to play clean offense. And I do feel, not a pressure, but an expectation that like we can go out every point and score. And so now we got to figure out how to do that, how to kind of put these new pieces together, to try and have the most pristine offense we can. And so I guess to answer your question, haven't lost since 2018. And I think, it's not so much about the wins and losses. We're obviously hoping to peak by the end of the season. So I think you learn a lot in losses. But if by the end of the season, the team can kind of put these pieces together and not get broken, let's just say on the O-line, I think that's the goal. And that's very exciting to have that be a possibility.
Yeah, and I know that the team after Pittsburgh, that being 2 weeks ago, it wasn't everybody's favorite game. There were certainly critiques for both players and coaches about the way the team played. But in that contest, statistically, you had 7 assists, 2 goals, 43 completions, 766 total yards, which was the most single game at a point in the season so far, and one of the highest. I think it was top 10 in AUDL history, even for that, for total yardage, which is obviously a new stat as well. But all I said, I know you're not looking at the numbers, but what was it about that Pittsburgh game that had you kind of calling your own number and putting the emphasis of just picking up yardage in the way that you did on your back?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's funny you say looking at the numbers. I'm really trying not to look at the stats. For the first time, there's, a surplus of statistics, and I'm very math oriented person. So I've always loved it for sports, but now to be in that position, really trying to not have it affect the psyche and just go out there and play. So I think I was a little surprised, each of these games, like when people tell me the yardage numbers, I'm kind of surprised because I just feel like I'm going out there and playing, but really trying not to, let it affect the play. I think, the Pitt game, I was just a little loose with the decisions, and it ended up resulting in, high stats, but also not my best game. And so for me, it's interesting to see like, headline stats numbers, but also I didn't leave from it feeling like I had played my best game. And I think, let's just say coming out of Tampa, maybe there weren't the same assists, et cetera, numbers, but I came out of that feeling like I protected the disc and facilitated a lot better. So for me personally, there's a bit of a mismatch between statistics and how I think I played sometimes. And that's why I kind of use it as an example to say, hey, it's probably not the best idea for me to kind of have a mental tally of, what are these stats during the game, or to look at them right after the game, et cetera. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh specifically for my second game was seeing if I could hit some of the downfield cutters deep, and saw that I kind of have those shots if I really need them, but going forward am trying to kind of play cleaner ultimate, cleaner offense, and really only take them if they're wide open.
Well, this is the Empire podcast, so this is a safe space where we don't really talk about your throwaways too much. Maybe in a second or third year with the Empire, we'll get into it. But with your first year in the Empire, I save you from the throwaway discussions. But what I do want to talk about, looking back on things, you are known, and I found this from multiple people, that you are known for your film review, for looking back and reviewing the tape. And maybe you've done it in the past. I'm not sure if you've done it for the current season so far. Again, these games every week, so they're coming in a hurry. And have you had time to review the tape, and from film or not, but what have you learned from your first few weeks playing for the Empire?
Yeah. I do like film. I think, in college, when I took my big leap from, never having handled to becoming the O-line handler at Stanford, that actually happened when I took 3 months off of Ultimate and was in Spain and had no access to playing. So all I could do was just watch. And I kept watching handlers. What were they doing? How were they pump faking? Where were they setting up, et cetera? And that's when I came back and kind of for the first time became an O-line handler. So I really do like film a lot. And I think you notice things, for example, have gone back and watched all of our games with the Empire. And yeah, you just notice things about the offense of like, why was this particular situation so difficult to get out of, or this whole point, why wasn't it easy like another point? And so to go back and pause it every few seconds, see where did I set up, where were the cutters, et cetera, how can we slightly adjust things to improve it? And so I'm wondering, there's specific adjustments that are insider secrets. So if it's truly just Empire, can explain some, but our competitors should cover their ears if I'm going to say any of these. But yeah, definitely love film a lot.
Well, yeah, then I was going to ask too, just more generic, as you're going throughout a game, you're probably best known for your patience on your resets and an overall calm in waiting for hucks. Yes, you have hucks, but as you said, even against Pittsburgh, you're not going to holster those unless they're comfortable looks. So you also have a reputation of accuracy on your pull plays. I don't want to characterize you too much as that kind of player, but how do you think those qualities that have helped you in the past so well with other teams, how does that fit into the Empire offense?
Yeah, I think for pull plays, we have strong cutters. And so for me, my expectation is that I can break a mark. And so between having strong cutters and me particularly with a focus on being able to break like any mark, that's a goal I kind of set for myself. I feel like the expectation is I'm able to get the disc downfield and start the offense on every single pull play. And if I have to reset whatever, that's fine. We'll take that. But I definitely, have a goal for myself to, have 100% starting offense completion percentage, and also as much as possible, really try and get that first throw to a cutter to initiate that cutter to cutter flow that we like.
Now, I know you don't want to give away the Empire trade secrets, but for your relationship with the DC Breeze, even though your teammates have battled them many, many, many times, I mean, for the likes of the Dross brothers and Matt Lamar and Cat Stevens, it's been many, many battles with DC. But for you now facing DC just for the very first time, the iteration that you saw in week one, what did you learn from week one, and how is your team preparing for them in this second occasion? Because now looking, you said undefeated doesn't matter, sure, but obviously hosting in the playoffs is a priority. And that matchup against DC is one of those big reasons.
Yeah, definitely. DC was a fun game. It was my first game in 3 years. And so I think what surprised me was the physicality. I think, we don't bring quite that level of physicality in practice, just trying to, avoid injuries. And whoever's on me, I think they clearly done their research. On the pull play, first point of the game, he came down just like yelling my name and just like talking to me about me. It was someone I had never played against and didn't know, so he had obviously been watching film, and I personally like that because it means that they're taking the matchup seriously and really trying, and it kind of pushes me mid game to play as well as I can, saying, okay, he watched film, so he must have known that I liked, this throw, and I can still get it off if I want. I kind of take that on as a challenge when I know they've like studied me or watched film. But yeah, DC defender is very physical, played, a lot of strong person to person defense, less of a junkie look. So yeah, they definitely, my first game back in 3 years, brought like a ton of heat, which I liked. And I think kind of woke me up to like, okay, this is a very competitive division. And I'm going to have to get in better shape. I'm going to have to, have better decisions, better throws, etc. Going forward in order for us to hit our goal late season. So, yeah, I'm pretty bummed I'm actually not able to make this second game against DC. So I won't be there this weekend, going to be watching and have a lot of faith in the guys to play good ultimate. But yeah, I think, even though wins and losses don't matter, like you said, home field advantage come September is important. So hopefully we can get it done this weekend.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see without yourself, potentially without Jack Williams this weekend. It'll be a different look from the Empire offense. But all that said, again, we want to plug that we'll be watching on AUDL.tv, as well as for those who want to go back. We didn't say the name, but if you want to figure out who that DC player that did his due diligence to do that tape on you, then we'll look back on AUDL.tv for the first week of the season and get to know that player. But for now, we want to get to know you, Elliott, and that is that you're not, even though it's your first year, you're maybe a rookie on the New York Empire. You are no rookie to the AUDL. You've played one season prior to that, being the 2018 season with the San Francisco, now defunct San Francisco Flamethrowers. You played in their final season. I'm going to give you your stats here: 37 assists, 14 goals, 8 blocks, 95% completion, 281 points played, 243 of those on offense. So nothing too crazy there. Then a plus 32, which from a central handler also is not uncharacteristic, but it's a good number. It's a good number. More than the stats, though, you joined them right after they had won their title in 2017, right after Bo Kittredge had come over to the New York Empire in 2018. So the question would be, it's a very similar situation in terms of San Francisco coming off that championship high, and then the same thing with the Empire, with the exception of the Empire having a 1-year hiatus because of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's funny. I had never put that together until you said it, that apparently I'm just chasing the champions, just going whoever previously won. It's actually a really similar situation in 2018. I had played in Australia for U24 and then stayed and traveled, and similarly had thought that maybe wasn't going to play frisbee as much when I came back. Had just put 6 years into college club, and then kind of culminating in making the U24 national team. So was thinking of taking a bit of a break, and then one of my buddies who I loved playing with said, "Hey, let's do this." That was Leo Gaval, and Leo said, "Let's play San Francisco." And so I was in New Zealand, I think, and he and I signed our contracts and just decided to play. So, yeah, I think an unintentional pattern of going to the previous champion. But if I play Empire next year, then I'm hoping the pattern continues of playing to the previous champion.
Right. Now, one of those players that will be a contender for even the division, this very difficult Atlantic division. We talked about DC already, but Atlanta has bolstered their roster almost as much as the Empire has, with you and Ryan and a few other players, Chun Moy being the most recent one last weekend. So Antoine Davis played with you in San Francisco. I mean, what did the Atlanta Hustle get? He's obviously, for those who have been watching the AUDL for a number of years, whether it's the San Jose Spiders or San Francisco, Antoine Davis is a really good player. But in particular, what are they getting not on the field? What are they getting in the total package of Antoine Davis?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think everyone knows how athletic he is, how fast he is, etc. and he has quite good throws. I think on the field, he's such an asset. Any team would be lucky to have him. But he's a great teammate and a really good guy. He was one of my favorite people, not just to play with, but to pal around with. And going back to Leo and Tuan are, real tight, real good friends. And I think, through that relationship have been able to keep up with Tuan even since he's left San Francisco and I've left as well. We've kind of gone our separate ways, but have chatted with him a few times, and we're both excited to be on the East Coast and, play each other upcoming. I don't know which weekend, but yeah, he's just like so much energy. He's always smiling. He's got a lot of confidence, which I like in a teammate. So yeah, he's definitely a very good pickup for Atlanta.
Well, now for the rest of the podcast, Elliott, I want to jump around a bit. I mean, going through your even ultimate history is kind of just where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Elliott Chartock? Because that's where we're going to go through. First, we're going to start back on the West Coast at Stanford Bloodthirsty, which was the college team, obviously, at Stanford. I want to hear the story about how you found out you had first made the A team.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good one. Have you heard this one, or because it's a very good story? But
I know our listeners have, so I'd like to hear it again.
Well, actually, I don't even know how much I don't even know if the A team knows this. I know it's something I've like shared with my family, but basically got to Stanford and was thinking a few different sports, wanted to stay active. Frisbee, maybe. I love racquetball, actually. Racquetball, played soccer in high school. And I went and went out to the Frisbee tryouts and like really liked the guys. Definitely was not nearly as good at them as they were. And for me, I kind of get obsessed with things that I see others are good at that I'm not. And so I just kind of got hooked. Like, these other guys are so cool. They're so good. And I'm not there, but I think I could get there. If I tried hard. And we went through a few rounds of cuts, and I was still in, wasn't sure if I was going to make it or not. And we went to our final tournament, and I don't know, I like couldn't sleep great the night before. I think I fell asleep at 3, had to wake up at 6 a.m. And so, went to that tourney off 3 hours of sleep, and like 2 days later kind of was thinking, maybe I'll just opt for B team this year, play prison experiment, and then see if I am more interested next year. Was kind of on the fence, and had decided I was going to reach out to the captain like the next day and call him. And I won't give away any secrets of how you find out you make the team, but it's a very exciting tradition at Stanford. The way they tell you, very unexpected. Was not expecting to kind of find out in that manner. A lot of excitement. Was a very fun night, and ended up like not really having the decision to say if I wanted to play A or B, because I had made A, and at that point I was in. Yeah. Was like totally hooked. Something about that night really helped the bonding with the teammates, and then kind of never looked back. Became all in for the next 5 years.
And as you continued on and became a veteran on the team, one of the players that has credited you for being kind of a mentor, at least helping him be shown the ropes, is Gabe Hernandez, who now plays for the Roughnecks, a really good player. So with Stanford, you produced quite a few ADL players, as we've already mentioned. So how closely are you watching former teammates like Gabe Hernandez?
Yeah, it's funny. I wouldn't say I watch like tons and tons of games, but the ones I do watch are ones where close friends are playing. I think if there's a particular matchup, I might try and check it out, or a particular player. And so Gabe was one of, I think, 11 players to make the first Dallas game against LA. I don't know if you saw, but one of the airplanes was late. And so He was playing for the first half, like every point pretty much. And that's the first time I've seen him play, in 3 years. So that was fun. As well as I watched San Jose game. Kevin Teen was one of the Stanford captains, another guy who joined as a freshman, I think my 5th year, and just put a lot into the sport, a lot into the team. So I've been real proud to like see him pulling for the team and starting, as well as, all the San Jose guys that I played with when I played Stanford, and Gorilla and Mischief. A lot of them are on that team. So I'd say exactly what you asked was most of the games I watch are because, it's a good friend or someone that, I care a lot about or have played with previously that is getting reps. I'm curious how they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with your time at Stanford, we kind of already went over your choice to pick up frisbee in the way that it did. But a ton of players in the AUDL started playing in high school. I think more and more the percentage of ultimate players that are now playing at the highest levels, whether it's club or in the AUDL, did start in high school or even before. But what advice would you have for those athletes picking it up in college like you did?
I think, yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, it really came down to throwing. And so it really depends what you're good at or what you see your potential strengths. For me, I don't think I'm, a freak of nature athlete. I definitely work on the gym a lot to, improve vertical potentially or speed. I think the main reason I go into the gym is injury prevention. And so have done that consistently. But for me, in soccer had real good vision on the field. And I thought, between maybe seeing the field and just getting throws down good, that kind of seemed potentially like my path into success and ultimate. And so I think potentially self-evaluation to see what are your assets and really going all in on those. But freshman year, one of my co-freshmen, Josh Kapelowski, he played in high school in Rochester. And then he and I were my first year through fifth year, just very close on the Frisbee team and on the field. We weren't really getting many reps. The team was national caliber. But he reached out to me and said, like, hey, I think we should just start throwing every single day. We can, since we're not getting tons of tournament reps, we can just get those throws down. So when we do go in, we're not a liability with the disc. And we started, I believe if my history is correct, I believe we started this concept of like TED, throw every day, which I know Gabe now talks about. And Gabe has taken that to Johns Hopkins, where now Angelo, who's on Johns Hopkins, told me about TED, throw every day. Angelo, who's on the Empire.
Yeah, current
And it was
teammate
funny.
Angelo Olcese. Yep.
Yep, exactly. And it was funny to see like the trickle. I don't know.
Yeah.
Angelo knows that comes from me and Josh. I don't think I told him, but he embraces throw every day and he's been playing really well. And it really started. Josh and I, 8 a.m. every morning, would go out and do 10 flat flicks, 10 OI, 10 IO, 10 flat backhands, OI, IO. I think we do like 10 lefties, 10 scoobers, 10 hammers, and 10 hucks. Every single day for like over 100 days, we got our streak going. And I don't know who's like the record holder. Gabe might have gotten it at one point up to 365. But I think Gabe as well might say the same thing, where if you look at film of Gabe freshman year, he's got some like atrocious turnovers where he can't throw like a 2-foot backhand. And then by his senior year, he was O-line handler, D-line handler, incredible hucks, break throws, etc. So I think, my advice for someone just getting it into college is to throw every day. If you do 100 throws every single day, and you're intentional about your form, trying to improve, not just going out there running through the motions, within 2 months, you're going to have market improvement. And if you can do that, for a full year, you're going to be in a spot where you can not just like go out there and people trust you with the disc, but you can be a handler within, like 1 to potentially 2 years of playing. You can maybe start like running a D-line handle set or maybe even O-line, depending on your team, which is crazy 2 years into a sport to be like running an offense.
Yeah. Final question about Stanford. As far as some of the bigger accolades you got while you were there, you were the Shirley School Club Sports Athlete of the Year winner in 2015. And then in 2017, an Ulti-World All-American second teamer. As far as telling your family about those awards, which one was your family prouder of hearing about?
That's funny. You've done your research. Yeah. The 2015 Shirley one, my coach, Dan Silverstein, nominated me for that. And he is another huge mentor for me in the sport, working on throws and talking strategy, constantly. And so that one, meant a lot to me. And also that one was cool because That was not just club sports, but that was varsity as well. And so I won the club sport, male athlete of the year. But the ceremony was all of the varsity athletes as well. And so I have a booklet of all of the winners, and in it are like many gold Olympians, like Jordan Morris, who plays at like Swansea for soccer and is on the U.S. national team.
Or Seattle Sounder, or current Seattle Sounder, technically. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, he might be
And
on loan.
Chase on Randall, who was in the NBA for a hot minute there too. Yeah, so
there you go. Yeah, huge names. So that one for me personally meant a lot, and I love just looking through that booklet and just being
yeah.
like, someone doesn't quite belong here. But I think I'm like, does my family know about either one of those? I'm not even sure. My mom like loves frisbee. She goes to every tournament, but she is very nervous about watching. So she won't watch my games, but she'll be there like getting food for everyone, making sure everyone's sunscreened. And if the game's close, she'll like go to the car and just like not watch. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I think for me the really cool one was the 2015 one. Given that I was up there with other very renowned players. And I think my family just, win or lose, awards or not, just likes the fact that I'm playing.
Well, I know, yeah, we talk about Jordan Morris wearing the USA jersey, but he's not the only one. You also wear the USA jersey for the 2018 World Under 24 Ultimate Championships in Perth, Australia, where
That's
you
true.
played with Jack Williams. And then you also credited Cal Poly Slows at the time, Cameron Werner, for some of the battles as one of the best defenders from the last decade in college ultimate. And working with Jack, working with Cameron, what was different about that under 24 experience down in Australia?
Yeah, no, that's great point. Cam and I had some awesome matchups, but always against each other. So to combine and be on the same team was a lot of fun. Um, and I think for me, the unique experience about U24 is that, these are people I have heard of and played against for the last 5 years. And to then be on the same team and have, you kind of are predisposed to thinking that like you don't like that person, or, like they're the enemy, etc. I'll say not Cam. I think in region, I think Cam and I had a lot of respect for each other, but players on other teams that I'd never even talked to just by virtue of like losing to them, probably I was like, oh, I don't like that person.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're on the same team, and then by the end of the first weekend together, you're like, oh, that person's a really a great guy. I actually like him a ton. um I don't mind like calling someone out. Like Jonah Wish is just like a hard personality because he's very focused, he's very like on the field, he's very serious. And I never said a word to him, but for some reason, he's Pitt's always the best. And so I was like, Jonah, just like, that would be interesting to play with him because I don't know if I like him. And he came and stayed with me and my family before the U24 first practice weekend in Atlanta. And Jonah and I just had like an absolute blast together. We, ate like Ben and Jerry's after the weekend because we were exhausted, and watched like 8 straight hours of Stranger Things. So, definitely had like some good bonding with Jonah. Now I think he's like an incredible guy, and so I think what was different about U24, besides just the caliber of play, playing with really good players, was to be able to kind of break down some of those borders of, different college teams, and all of a sudden have like 25 people that and like, that throughout the rest of your career you're going to see at pro tournament or pro games, club tournaments potentially, or even like layout. At layout, I saw a bunch of the guys from U24, and international play as well. I really like international play. And so it just kind of exposes you to a whole community of Frisbee that you carry around like place to place as you go continue playing.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought it up about the international play. That's the final frisbee question I have for you. You were 2016 Colombia national champion, playing with Comunidad del Oso down in Colombia and also in Mexico. So how was that experience? Obviously, other than the language, how was that experience different from your other ultimate experiences?
For me, it was just like the best. I loved it so much both times. I I really like, Comunidad del Oso allowed me to come to, or invited me to the PAUC tournament. And man, by the end, like it's just such a family, I think, in a way that I'd never felt on a different team. They truly are, they do like everything together inside and outside of practice. And Comunidad El Oso, community like of the bear.
Mhm.
It really is a community. They have a WhatsApp group for anyone that's ever been on Oso, in the past, or anyone in their youth. They have one unified WhatsApp group that is growing upwards of like 500 people, where it really is such a strong community. Like when a youth player gets called up or does something cool, they post it there. And you're like a 15-year-old who like looks up to all these 20-year-olds who are winning medals, and they've just called you out, and it's got to be like such a good feeling. And so I really liked playing there. I love speaking Spanish and kind of traveling as well. And so there are a few things like in the Colombian tournament where my Spanish, maybe I didn't know a word and had to get like one of my teammates to translate for me. But learned a bit about how they play down there in Spanish, and also the style of play is a little bit different. So that was cool to see and take back to the US. Like, is there anything different I kind of want to bring to the Stanford team or my future teams? And mainly just like felt very accepted. Love the guys, relationships I've kept up with, and feel very welcome to like, potentially go back and play with them again and hang with the guys, and have hosted in my house some of the players who have been visiting San Francisco or Palo Alto or New York. So yeah, personally love playing internationally, and just the connections you make with people is awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, we're at the point in the show where we're winding down and we've been peeling back the ultimate layers and layers. And now we're not going to talk ultimate. We're just going to finish up the show a little quicker by asking some questions about Elliott that maybe he has not heard in the past. I want to start with, for some reason, your name and ant research. And you said that I do my research, but no, I just know how to Google. But ant research, right? If I just give you those two words, I just need an explanation and why you're so pro ant. Because I think most people are irritated by the idea of ant farm. Well, ant farms are pretty controlled, but fire ants and just they seem to be absurd little creatures. What's the point?
Yeah, ants are just awesome. I love ants. What can I say? I was at home, just I think bored out of my mind in college, scrolling YouTube, and found an ant documentary, hour and a half long. Who would watch that? I didn't even want to watch it. I watched the first 5 minutes just kind of as a joke, I think. And 5 minutes in, I was like, wait, this is pretty cool stuff. Like, let me go 10 minutes. And 10 minutes in, I was hooked, watched the full documentary. And my main takeaway was like, there's no way this is true. Some of the things I was learning about ants, they just completely felt like fake facts. And so I started reading about them, got into like Wikipedia pages, and one of the things I found was that Stanford had the leading ant researcher in the world, Deborah Gordon.
Mm.
And I was like, that's pretty cool. My university has the number one ant researcher. And I got back to school a few weeks later. I was in an elevator and it said, like, looking for ant research assistant, please reach out to Deborah Gordon. And I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. Like, I'm going to do it. I bet everyone's trying to do this. Like, there's no way she's going to pick me. Emailed her. She was like, yeah, you're the only one who emailed. So like, it's yours. So I ended up doing ant research for a year at Stanford, which is less glorious than it sounds. I know it sounds incredible, but is a little less glorious, not to talk poorly about the ant community. But it's less exciting, and it's more like go out from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. and like try and capture a queen ant and bring it back to the lab. And then you're out there for 4 hours in the middle of the night and didn't get one. And you're like, all right, well, that was a fun 4 hours. But yeah, I just really love ants. Like, they're actually extremely fascinating. There's similarities to like the, human biology, to the brain, to the way that neurons communicate are very similar to the way that like ants communicate. And there are like ant algorithms that are extremely efficient. There's kind of so many interesting actual real life applications of studying ants that I just kind of started to learn about as I read more and more and went to the research to the lab. So yeah, ants are really cool. And I think I've talked like 3 straight minutes here without you saying a word about them, and could easily do like 4 or 5 hours, as many of my friends can attest. So yeah, definitely love ants.
Well, we're going to pivot from ants to a lesser, I say a lesser beloved insect in gnats. You were a member of the palmetto sand gnats playing infield. Do you think that I know you said you played high school soccer, but do you think a little bit of a background in playing in the infield or baseball helped with your hand-eye coordination?
How did you find the palmetto sand gnats? Wow, that's a deep cut. Sorry, I'm like so thrown off by the fact that you brought up the palmetto sand gnats. Can you repeat the question?
Well, just a connection between baseball or playing in the infield. And I mean, so not every sport experience you've had was good because you're not still playing baseball, or you didn't even mention baseball in one of the ones you had played before. So yeah, I just asked if the connection between the hand-eye coordination, playing with that, if you've noticed those things with playing Ultimate.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I could probably make a connection. I don't know that I've made it between baseball and frisbee before, but I like my role very specifically was probably similar to frisbee in the sense that I grew very late. So I played on the sand gnats in 8th grade, I believe maybe seventh or 8th grade. I was so tiny. I was like the smallest kid on the field by far. I played second base because I couldn't throw it from like third or shortstop fast enough to first base.
Yeah.
But I had a really good glove. Like if the ball came near me, I was always getting it and like, not making errors, was able to kind of make a lot of like diving plays. So I think maybe that hand eye could be there where it's just quick reactions with the glove, and maybe, like catching the disc, kind of throwing is a bit similar as well. So I think maybe I really love baseball. I actually quit in high school to do math team. I was a mathlete, and
we were getting there, Elliott. We were getting there.
I'm jumping the gun, but basically my high school was like a top baseball team in the state, have won state many times. And there really wasn't room in my life for baseball and math, and had to choose math. So yeah, ended up retiring the glove for baseball, but I really love baseball.
Well, let's end with math, because before that, I just want to ask, from gnats to now dogs, what makes yellow labs one of, if not the best dog to have?
Oh, they're just the best. They're so much joy. I have 2 yellow labs, Bailey and Nella, and they're just like such bundles of joy. Very, very happy, loyal dogs. Like, this is maybe kind of weird, but like yellow lab ears, I just find are like the best things in the world. They're so soft. You could be insanely stressed or sad or whatever, and if you're just like petting a yellow lab's ears and it's licking you, you're instantly happy. So I really like yellow labs.
Yeah. So the final thing, you knew we were going to talk about math here. And yeah, so as my Google history is in a weird place, going across high school math competitions. So the ones that you attended that I want to kind of pick from: 2010 math meets at the University of Charleston. That being for South Carolina, AC Flora High was your high school, and then Georgia Tech high school math competition in 2012, and then the one at Coastal Carolina in 2020. So I think most of our listeners are not familiar with and I do say highest levels of the Deep South math competition. So what does that look like? I mean, and we're not comparing it to other sports, but what does that look like of a weekend of a math tournament?
Yeah, happy to answer, but only would plug myself because it's math here. You're missing the big ones. You're missing 8th grade math counts state champion, and then the other big one I was proud of, which I think was USA Math Olympiad, which is not just kind of getting out of the South, but nationally qualified. I think it's like top 100 math students in the nation are math Olympiads. And so that was really cool, except what I then got to do because of that was I qualified for a 9-hour proofwriting contest. You get 6 questions in 9 hours, full proofs. And I had gotten concussed playing soccer the day before. And so I was just like concussed, had 9 hours to kill. I think for one of the questions, I just didn't know how to do it. I like drew the full label of like the juice box I was sipping on and just didn't even attempt the problem.
Well, now you have me signing up for ant research after 9 hours of math problems. I'll do the ant research. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Now ant research seems pretty fun in comparison, but no, math theme. I mean, believe it or not, I really liked it. It was pretty competitive. So let's just take example, College of Charleston tournament. What'd that look like? There are multiple rounds. There's an individual round and there's a team round. So, for the first part of the individual round, you might have like 90 minutes, 30 questions, and, they're weighted. If you get it right, you get plus a certain amount. If you get it wrong, you get minus a certain amount. Maybe very similar to like the math portion of SAT, except like kind of harder questions. And then that might contribute to your team total as well as your individual. And then there's a team round where like your team of 4, you pick 4 for your team. And the 4 of you sit in a room for 2 hours and you get 5 questions and you work on, those 5 questions as a team. Those are a little bit harder. And then aggregate all of those into, a team score. And my school, AC Flora, we had this coach, Mr. R, who trained a lot of us. We were best in the Southeast for my years, which was exciting. Kind of culminated. We won the Duke tournament, which is, one of the biggest in the U.S. Duke, Stanford, and Princeton are maybe the 3 biggest. And we won the Duke one, which was really cool. But the Charleston one particularly had a lightning round, which, not all of them do. But the lightning round for Charleston, you're there in an auditorium in front of a few hundred people, and you go one-on-one with someone, 2 out of 3 questions, and they show a question. You have a pencil, and you buzz when you get it, just like Mean Girls, for anyone who's seen Mean Girls. But, like, the limit does not exist. That was basically, like, tiny little high school me up there in front of a big auditorium answering speed questions. And I think I especially liked it because, the winner of these got money. So I left Coastal Carolina with like $100 as a 15-year-old. That was pretty cool. But yeah, math team, I think, in line with Frisbee, just like loving competition. I'd say probably got more nervous at math competitions than I do at Frisbee. Yeah, they were intense.
Yeah, and I think one of your greatest accomplishments I was able to find was you once won an apple pie for memorizing the first 100 digits of pi. So the final question I ask you is, how far along pi can you get?
Oh man, that's I wish I still knew 100. I can probably go like 25 around, but yeah, I did that in middle school, won an apple pie. I was a 6th grader and did it in front of all the 7th and 8th graders, 100 digits. How'd you find that?
Well, either way, now you are a full-fledged member of the New York Empire. So we want to thank you so much for the time. Elliott, this was really great.
Dan, this is a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
So thank you again, not only to Elliott, but to you, all our listeners. This wraps up another edition of the New York Empire podcast from the entire New York Empire family. We'll talk to you soon.
Go Empire.